Hi, Benita Lee here. Today on Live and Learn, we have a marketer, Dan Sanchez. You probably all know him as Dan Chez, and he wrote a children's book recently. I wanted to ask him about his children's book, and I know that in talking to a lot of you, you were wondering how he did this. So let's bring him on. Hey,
Hi,
Dan.
Benita. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming. I'm so grateful for your time. So, Dan, I was telling everybody about your children's book, and people were like, cool, I want to write a children's book too. Tell us why. Tell us what the book is. Tell us why, who you dedicated it to, all that good stuff.
Awesome. So the book is I Want to Be a Marketer When I Grow Up. Because if you've ever asked a marketer what they do, you probably saw some like, well, and then the person probably turned in the party and was kind of like, oh, okay, you work in marketing. Nobody really understands what that means. I've tried to explain to my own kids what it means, and it's always confusing. They're like, I don't know. He sits in front of a laptop all day. And honestly, I live in a world where I'm a marketer that serves and talks to other marketers often. And nobody's really found a good way, one, to explain it to your kids, and two, to even teach marketing to children. So I wanted to write a book that accomplished multiple objectives. And the main one is really to help like marketing parents help teach their children what they do, but also to be able to help more kids understand and practice marketing, because this is becoming a valuable skill set, right? And a lot of people talk about kids needing to code and do STEM, and I'd say yes, amen to that. But marketing is also one of those things that I think we could be teaching kids earlier in school and be exposing them to a whole career path that employs hundreds of thousands of people. In fact, I know more people in marketing that started in a different career and then landed in marketing, because marketing at the end of the day is what paid the bills, than people who like just started off at a degree in marketing. I know I majored in marketing, but most people got in because they were an artist first, or they were an engineer first, or they studied biology or chemistry or something else, and somehow didn't like those careers, couldn't quite make it in those careers, or just decided that those careers maybe didn't make enough money, and somehow ended up in marketing, where not only did they make a living wage, but they actually loved the job. So it's to kind of build some of those soft skill sets in kids early and to be able to help them.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's when I read it, I was thinking, this reads like a Pixar cartoon where, the parents get a lot out of it as well as the kids.
Absolutely. It's written to teach, but it's also written to be very fun, right? Because marketing can be a little bit of a dull subject. Now, I didn't write this alone. I've had help with a firm that specializes in turning topics like marketing into kids' books. And I wrote it with a man, his name's Timmy Bauer, who's a professional kids book author. This is what he does full time. And so we sat down together and started to unpacking marketing and talked about, what does it mean? What is marketing? And I started telling him like, oh, I've had the privilege of being able to teach multiple 18 and 19-year-olds marketing. I was a college professor for a short bit and had to teach marketing 101. I'm like, how do you teach marketing? Like, so I would often introduce it even to college students. It's like, marketing, it's like fairy dust. You sprinkle it on good ideas to help them fly, right? Just to kind of give them an idea, visual. But then I would move into like the 4 Ps of marketing and start breaking it down technically. But Timmy was, as the expert kids book author, was like, that's what we're going to base it around. We're going to make marketing like fairy dust. In fact, if we make it into different colors, like what would the colors be? And I was like, well, marketing could be described as like the application of creativity, psychology, and strategy, and blending all 3 of them together to make great marketing campaigns in order to solve problems, in order to sometimes, and the main character in the book, which is modeled after myself, goes through and helps multiple friends that are hitting different types of challenges. One isn't able to sell enough cookies, so they use a strategy fairy dust in order to solve that. And they run into a place where someone's trying to run for school president, and he helps her become class president through the psychology fairy dust, right? And kind of goes through the journey where he's helping all their friends with multiple, bunch of different types of problems, and then helps them with the fairy dust. Once we kind of had that idea, we locked in a little bit of a story and how it would progress. There's also some fun things that happened in the book that were like total accidents that ended up being fun elements as well. My favorite one though was I have a faux hawk. That's my hair.
Right.
So when they were making the character, the illustrator gave it like a normal haircut. I'm like, oh, change it to a faux hawk. It's got to be a faux hawk if it's going to be Sanchez.
Right.
And I think the illustrator was, I don't know, English was a second language for this illustrator. And they interpreted the message as, well, faux hawk. Well, what is a faux hawk? It's a fake hawk. And literally put a hawk on my shoulder.
Right.
Somewhere in the book.
That's where the hawk came from.
So there was a hawk, and I'm like, well, actually, I like the hawk. You still need to add the faux hawk haircut, but let's keep the hawk. So the hawk became a character throughout the book as well, because there was this like fake hawk in the whole book. Even on the cover, you can see like there's this fake hawk. That fake hawk is a character throughout the book now.
And it's like making ideas fly and hawks fly. So I thought that was on purpose.
No, that was an accident. And later worked it into the narrative. It became part of the conversation, especially when you needed narration in the book that wasn't from the main character. The hawk became the person explaining what's going on.
Right. Love it. Wow. How things just like turn out, things that you didn't even mean.
Any creative process is kind of a journey, right? And some things you think are accidents. You're like, no, that's not an accident. Let's run with it. It's like the little things like that happen are the things that make it fun. One thing that Timmy did in helping write this book was kind of coming up with the fun factor of the book. So while there's fairy dust and stuff, the one idea he brought to the table that like made the book fun for the kids to read is that the main character has to whack his head on things in order for the fairy dust to come out. And at first I was like, whack his head on things? That's kind of weird. He's like, no, trust me, the kids will love it. And he or I don't know, not play tested, but like read it and tested it with groups of children, and they always got really good laughs. And when they commented favorite things they loved about the books, like, I love it when he whacks his head against the girl running for class president. And she's like, what? This is weird. He's like, just go with it. And all this fairy dust is going everywhere. It's part of the book. And I think there's one part where they're like petitioning keeping a metal slide in their playgrounds. It gets hot and they're going to get rid of it. And they're like, no, we have to petition it. The kids all called it the Bunsen burner because it was so hot, right? I was like, so it's like every kid that I've talked to that has read this book, they're like, oh, I love the part about the Bunsen burner. Of course you like the Bunsen burner. That's what they call the slide.
Yeah, that's hilarious. So if Timmy Bauer was going to write a book with me, I think it would have to be like, when I grow up, I want to be a consultant. But yeah, no, I'm going to have to contact Timmy for more information. And
Timmy's like, yep. One thing to think about this book strategically, like, why would I write a kid's book? Sure, it's to help kids understand marketing, and I'm passionate about marketing. I hope my kids get into marketing. If they don't, that's great. Everybody's got to pick their own thing. But I also use this as a tool. I use this as a tool to send to people who are marketers that I would love to work with, or that I would just love to bless or send them something nice. I would like to send them something that they would actually remember me for or would find meaningful. And I'm like, how much more meaningful is it than sending like branded swag, than sending a book about them, or sending a book about their profession that they can read with their kids, right? So if you want to send a gift that, honestly, this only costs, I don't know, it cost me $6. Like, I think it's available for $10 on Amazon, a paperback, and you can get the free one on sweetfishmedia.com. This is like a very easy gift to send to people that you'd love to work with, or that you'd love to just send a thank you for, right? Especially if you know they have kids, for them to be able to sit down and read a book that makes them look like rock stars in front of their kids, I'm like, what a better, you can't think of a better moment to try to own or to
Yeah,
be a part of that moment.
it's
So I send this to
brilliant.
prospective customers all the time.
It's brilliant. It's giving me ideas. Every time I talk to you, it gives me these like flashes of brilliance that I have to write down, otherwise I'll forget.
Well, it's being recorded, right? You can always go back. That's why you
Right.
need to start a podcast so you can put this on to reference later on, right?
Yeah, no, maybe I will. This is how it all started with Sanchez.
There you go. This will be the first or second episode, and then if anybody's listening back and this topic of the podcast has changed, you know why.
Right, exactly. I got to change everything now, Dan. Well, the fairy dust was part strategy, part psychology, and what was the other one?
Creativity.
That's a big one that, like, as adults, we have so much problem with.
Yeah, it's a tough one. The book talks about it like, let's see, it explains creativity like, you know what that is, right? Yeah, that's creating stuff nobody else has thought of, way outside the box, like putting wheels on shoes. And then it has
Right,
the
I
tractor
caught on
skating
to
around.
that.
It's fun. Creativity. You could simplify it and just the stuff no one's thought about yet, or a unique application of somebody's no one ever thought about tweaking it this way or mashing these two ideas together. Or what if we mix football with marketing? How would that look like? I don't know what that would look like. I don't know if I want to tackle my target audience, but it makes you think, right? It makes you think about things that could be.
Right. Wow, brilliant. So Timmy's just reiterating what you said about there were two audiences that you need to please. You want the parents so that they can teach it, and then the kids want to be entertained, just like a Pixar, right? I was telling you.
Well, I think Pixar's do wonderful at entertaining both the kids and the parents, and sometimes there's like lessons in there, especially with their like what was that, Inside Out. Lots of like lessons in Inside Out. I don't know if everybody learns from that movie, but
I do. I learn from cartoons all the time.
Yeah, I guess all good stories have lessons in them, right?
Yeah, no. I think cartoons are better than like some of the dramas for learning lessons.
Absolutely. That's why I keep my Disney Plus subscription.
So Laura Dixon wants to ask, who's your real target market? Adults? And Dan explains it as he gives the book out to the marketers in his field that he really wants to work with.
Right. It's a gift strategy. So it's like not the people the book is for. Like, the consumer isn't always the buyer. The buyer is the adult. The consumer is the child. In my case, I'm really trying to get in front of both, and I'm trying to do so in a practical way, which is a fun to read kids book that teaches marketing.
Yeah, no, I can't think of anything more brilliant. It just inspires me to write my own book. And maybe it would be like about energy, right? Because energy is like the bad guy. Everybody thinks that, oil and gas producers and LNG projects are bad for the environment. Yeah, of course they're bad, but so is everything else, right? Everything else we consume. But we need it for like the time being. So how do you teach that to, the Gretas of the world? Is like, yeah, we all want to get clean. We all want to get there, but it's not going to be right now. So yeah, that would be fun. I think I'm going to have to connect with you, Timmy.
Absolutely. So, everybody watching this right now is like, I need to be friends with Timmy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, forget Dan. Well, let's get into Dan. Like, Dan, I love what you say about thought leadership. can we kind of go into that? Like, I know you wrote blogs on it, and you talk about the year that you read like every book you could
Yep.
on the subject. And then I'm learning from those blogs. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I love the topic of thought leadership. The problem with thought, there's one major problem with it though, and that it's just kind of a cringy term and it's poorly understood. So people are like, thought leader, ugh. One, don't call yourself that. And then two, it's kind of like, is there really any true thought leadership? And I'm like, well, there kind of is. So I know I went on a journey to find out what it was and to find out what was needed, because I'm like, how does one become a thought leader? I asked myself that question. I didn't really know the answer. Like, how does one actually get there and do it in a way that is authentic? Do it in a way that's true. That's not gaming the system. That's not just pulling all the levers and putting thought leader in the title and speaking at a TED conference and trying to like fake it. Like, how do you authentically do it? So I did read every book that had been published on it. I have a massive stack of books to my right here to try to do it. And honestly, it sounds really impressive to read like 20 books on one subject. It's way easier than you would think, because the first 3 you read, and then every one after that is just kind of like, okay, like you're really just kind of like skimming for new information because they're covering the same material over and over again. By the time you've read 20, it's felt more like reading 5 or 6, maybe 7 books.
Okay.
Yeah, it's what I call the 30-30-30 plan. Like I think everybody should probably niche down and read all the books ever written on the very topic that they're an expert in. It's possible. And most people don't think to do it because they've never even heard that it's a thing. So it's a thing. PhD students have to do it, but you can do it without doing the whole PhD, because that's much more time consuming and very expensive.
Right.
But that's honestly how you become a PhD, is by reading all the information on a very, very, very tiny subject and then figuring out what doesn't exist in this subject. What questions have not been answered? What problems have not been solved? And it's actually the same process for thought leadership.
Right.
You become an expert by reading all the material. And if you're really good, you share your insights about that material as you go. And I found out that's really the trick to how you become a thought leader authentically. You don't pretend to know everything. You ask good questions and you share the stuff you're reading from the books and the blog posts and the research. And as people watch you learn, they know that you know the information. They know that you have become an expert on it. So when you start actually exposing yourself to everything that was ever written about a certain subject, you can actually then wrestle with the things that no one's actually had an answer for. For me, that was how does one go from professional to thought leader? Most thought leader books are actually written for people that are already have a bit of cachet already. They're CEOs of big companies. They're already have their PhDs. Like, they're already somebody. They already have a platform, and now they need to like ratchet it up another level. And I was asking the question, like, well, how do you go from just being a pro already? You're already getting paid professionally to do the thing, to becoming a well-established thought leader. Like, you actually influence other people's thinking on the topic. How do you bridge that gap? And the 30-30 plan that Benita had linked below was kind of the answer to that. It's how you get started in that process. You read 30 books, you do 30 interviews, and you write 30 blog posts. And the order is somewhat important, though. You can do them out of order. And it doesn't have to be 30, obviously. It's nicer when you string it together like that. Most niche topics only have about 20 to 30 books written on it anyway. Like, thought leadership had about 20 books. Account-based marketing only has 12 books. So I went and read through all those too to learn that topic a while ago. So not all topics even have that many books to read. But in reading all the books, you usually cover most of the information that's ever been published. So you read through it. If you can interview, I would start a podcast. Starting a podcast is one of the best ways to become a thought leader, not only so you can publish content, but so you can get an audience with all the people that are already the thought leaders in the space. Podcasting is like a secret weapon for getting a meeting with anybody you'd ever like to get to know. And most experts and authors of the books you'd read in those first 30 books are usually the people most eager to jump onto a podcast to talk to you about it anyway.
Right. Yeah. Man, I learned so much from you, like marketing, podcasting. Let's talk about audience growth. Like, you are the guy for audience growth. Like, um, what do you have to say about, somebody, all of us, like trying to grow our audience?
That's audience growth is kind of my next endeavor. And I honestly don't promise to have many of the answers. I mean, I don't pretend to be the thought leader in audience growth, but it's the thing that I've set myself to try to figure out. And I'm with a lot of people. Like, how do you grow an audience? Now, I've taken a few swings before, and I've been able to grow like a little bit of a LinkedIn audience just for my personal brand. I've built up a website with lots of traffic with SEO before, and I've done a few things here, but not really. Like, I've only done a few things, but I want to learn how to do it well and do it repeatedly over and over again, not just for Sweetfish to offer as a product, but also just to publish my findings as I go into this question of how do you build an audience, especially how do you build one for a company? I don't know
Yeah.
if you've noticed, but I've noticed most people, or most of the time I see a large audience, especially one that's really engaged, comes from an individual person, a Chris Walker, right? A Justin Welsh, or a YouTuber out there. Hardly ever do you see a company that has a large following, like the company itself and not an individual person within the company. That's something I'm wrestling with. Why is that? Why are independent creators so much better at building audiences than companies with all their resources and money?
Right. I think it's personal relationship. I think you got it. I think
I,
like not only you're not seeing them as an audience, but also as an individual as well, right?
I think
Um,
it's multiple factors, but I think that's a major one. I think it's just
mhm.
easier to relate to a person than it is to a company.
Right.
So does that mean businesses should give up on growing an audience? Or is there something that you can do to offset that? Maybe you just put people in front. Maybe there's something you can do to make the logo work better, right? I mean, we can all
Right.
think of some companies that have done it well, like Red Bull, right? They got a large audience and get a lot of engagement out on their social stuff. But at the same time, Red Bull leverages people in all their videos, right? Famous athletes and different things, stunt performers. So it's kind of like, well, what's the answer there and what's the balance? Is it always have to lean on people, or are there other ways to do it? Those are the questions that I'm asking
Interesting.
myself as I go into this category of audience growth. I'll be launching a
Right.
new podcast just on the one topic early in January, but it hasn't launched yet.
Oh, well, yeah, you're going to have to let us know so that we can take a listen. Um, yeah, no, as like most of the viewers are small business owners, that people are there having to do their own marketing. Um, and like just got thrown into it, like myself. I told you my story earlier, and um, out of like business development, finance, taxes, and marketing. Like marketing is my favorite. I don't know how to do it, but I'd love to learn, subunit of my business. Like, what can you tell people like me out there?
Great. I'm so glad you asked. In fact, hold on one second. I have to get this book because this is probably like when I found this book, it
Okay.
like changed my life.
It's a game changer, guys.
So, and essentially, we were just talking about this in like the pre interview before this show went live. So a lot of this information I've just said, and I'll say again now for the audience.
Yes,
But
please.
the big reason why I even went to work at Sweetfish was because of this book called Content-Based Networking. Now, this is written by the founder of Sweetfish Media, and honestly, I was pretty happy at the place I was working for before, but when I read this book, everything changed for me as a marketer. And this is ultimately the one thing, if I could recommend one marketing book for people that don't have their own practice or are running their own business and they're just kind of a solo consultant or something, this is the
Right.
most powerful marketing book you can read if you only did this one thing.
Okay.
So content-based networking is the idea that you should start a content channel to co-create content with your ideal buyers. Now, Sweetfish specializes in podcasting, but it doesn't have to be limited to podcasting. You could do it with the YouTube channel. You could do it with just live streaming like you are here. And you could do it with even a blog. So it's not limited to just podcasting, but for the sake of ease of talking about it, I'm just going to refer back to podcasting as the way since that's mostly what we do at Sweetfish.
Of course.
Now, content-based networking is the idea that you're going to interview your ideal buyers on your show, and that you don't have to be the expert, and that you should make your show about their expertise rather than your expertise in order to build relationships with them, right? Not to pitch them, not to get them on the show and then sell them, but in order to build
Right.
relationships with them, because people buy from those they trust. And marketing is
Right.
all about establishing, one, awareness, but two, trust.
Huge.
And trust is usually where most people fall short, which is why you could drop, a few $1,000 in Facebook ads and then you see nothing for it, right? It's a very scary proposition to do paid media for the first time as a small business owner, right? So you're like, yeah, but am I going to get that $2,000 back? Ugh. Most paid media people would even tell you like, well, the first couple $1,000 are really like to learn, and then you figure out if it's worth it. I'm like, you got to be able to do better than that as a small business owner. Every dollar matters. So with content-based networking, it's the idea that you can invite them onto the show. Most people won't give you the time of day if you just say, I know I get a lot of pitches in my LinkedIn DM box. And most people do, right? They're always asking for, can I get 10 minutes of your time? 15 minutes. I'll give you this gift card if you would only just meet with me for 15 minutes. You're like, my goodness. People are throwing money just to get 15 minutes to pitch. And I pitch all the time, but instead of pitching someone for a demo, I just ask them for time on a podcast. Right. You've just done it with me, asking me for 60 minutes of my time to sit here on this interview.
I know.
It's much easier because what you're giving, you're not asking for something, you're giving something. You're giving your attention, but also the attention of your audience that you have, whether it's a podcast audience or your LinkedIn audience, like this video is out in front of right now. And it's a lot easier to get in front of someone and just ask them questions, and then they share their expertise about a topic, right? Question asking is much easier than coming up with a blog post or writing a vlog or just coming up with the solo podcast. You can sit in front of people and ask questions pretty easily, and bam, you have an awesome episode that you co-created together, but it's your content. You get to share it out with the world and use that for audience growth and build some audience on your podcast or a LinkedIn channel or whatever. But you also get to keep the relationship with the guest. And that's the most valuable part, especially if that guest could be worth like a good amount of money. It's not just somebody buying a $40 blanket. It's someone, especially in the B2B space, could be worth thousands to tens of thousands, in some cases, hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. And usually the more expensive, the longer it takes to bridge just from them being a guest to them being a customer. But it certainly accelerates it because you've built trust, because you've been able to have usually a pre-interview and an interview with them. You actually had FaceTime with them and had a conversation with them now. How many of their other vendors had FaceTime with them before they even entered the buying phase? Not many.
Right.
So
I love that.
This is the one book I would recommend to you and to others.
So yeah, there you have it. Content-based marketing. All you
networking.
Or sorry.
It's the one bane of the book is it's so close to content marketing that I myself have content-based marketing over and over again, but it's actually content-based networking.
Networking. It's
James
not
slaps
marketing.
me.
Yeah.
Metaphorically. Every time I say content-based marketing, he's like, no, stop calling it that.
Networking.
I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, and marketing gets a bad rap too, as well as like oil and gas, right? Because marketing is like, I don't know, people have seen it as, like subliminal messages in the past.
True.
But
marketers have a bad rap.
But
we're trusted, right? We're trusted about as much as used car salesmen and lawyers. I think we might even be below them.
You guys are changing the face of that. So that's what I love about like yourself and Sweetfish is like the moment I was introduced to your videos and your podcasts by Trent Russell. Shout out to Trent there. He started the audit podcast, and then I was a guest on his audit podcast, and then he showed me where he was learning his skills, and it was Sweetfish. And I was like, oh my gosh, you guys all like connected with me. Like, you're not like snobby. And so like, I really love what you guys are doing in the marketing space and teaching people, through all of it, blogs, podcasts, and you told me about masterminds and all of that stuff. Like, I'm trying to like get into a mastermind with you guys, but you guys do B2B and not B2C. Now, tell me a little bit about that. Like, why B2B?
B2B, I'm trying to think. It really started with James Carbary, who founded Sweetfish. He had pivoted multiple times. He first started Sweetfish as a content marketing agency, like there was many back in 2015, writing blog posts. And he's like, hey, we're going to write blog posts for church plants, which are like church startups, people who want to start new churches. He's like, I'm going to go after that market. Yep, that's who we're going to focus on. And he's like, I know how I'm going to get a hold of them. I'm going to start a podcast and invite them all to speak on it. He sent out an email to 50 people and like almost all of them responded. He's like, oh, shoot. What happened? Everybody responded and said yes. So he knocked out a bunch of podcasts, quickly found out that church plants don't have money to spend on marketing. and discovered how great podcasting was and how great content-based networking actually worked. He's like, forget the blogging thing. Let's help other people do what I just did with this church planting thing. And instead of pursuing church planting, he's like, well, who has money to spend? And B2B ended up becoming that thing. Other businesses, especially since in B2B, you can target not just based on demographics, not just based on psychographics. You have the added layer of firmographics, which makes it so much easier to find the right people that you can serve and that actually have the money that can be able to afford your services. In B2C, you're just hoping to spray and pray with ads that you're getting in front of the right people. And hopefully you segmented it down so you're getting in front of kind of the right people. But in B2B, you can literally just pull up the name and email of any single person you'd want at any company.
Right.
Do you want to find the marketing director and charge of Post-it notes at 3M? I could easily go on LinkedIn and find them. Right? Like, how hard is it to find the exact person who needs to make the purchasing decision?
Right.
It's not hard. It's easy to find them. Unlike B2C, where it's just kind of, you're like working through a veil. You don't know who's on the other side. In B2B, you know exactly who they are. You can go and find them and ask them questions and kind of get to know the market easier. So it's one of the reasons why we focus on B2B, honestly, is because it's easier and there's more money in it. And it's easier to serve and help other B2B customers become successful. See, Timmy Bauer is like, content-based networking is responsible for 60 to 80% of our revenue. Absolutely. Because Timmy Bauer executes his podcast like a champ and wrote a lot of our content for Sweetfish Media. And he's written a lot of the successful content-based networking playbook that powers Sweetfish Media now.
Yeah, I love how you guys, well, instead of like church-based, it's like those are your values. Those become your values, like your culture of Sweetfish. I think that's what I love about it. Like, yeah, no, I'm no churchgoer, but I love that Sweetfish has the culture and the values of someone, that does go to church.
Yep. I'd say the core values of Sweetfish Media are certainly informed by that. But it's not a dedicated Christian company. But,
right.
Yeah.
People are going to want me to ask, what you think of, like, since you're B2B, like what you think of LinkedIn as B2B. Everybody is saying that LinkedIn is like the hardest out of all the platforms to grow an audience, to get business and all of that stuff. But to me, I knew from the very start that I was going to be B2B because, an individual is not going to need customs compliance. They're not going to be audited by the customs authority for their cross-border transactions, right? And everybody was asking me, like, how do you generate leads on LinkedIn B2B? And I guess in a fashion, I was just using that content-based networking, but through blogs and mini posts, like mini blogs, like building trust with an audience with content.
Yes.
So going to the next level here, and I'm so glad to have been able to talk to you about it. What do you have in terms of tips and tricks for, LinkedIn, and how do you see it right now?
It's funny you said that a lot of people say that LinkedIn's one of the hardest places. And I actually find that it's the exact opposite. I find LinkedIn to be the easiest social network to build an audience on. Then one exception is TikTok. And of course, there's exceptions for everyone, because if you're like highly visual and you're an interior designer, then Pinterest, you can make a case there. It's kind of like, so there's exceptions for everything. But when it comes to selling B2B, especially, LinkedIn's kind of the one that's going to be the easiest to grow on. And I think it's easier for multiple reasons. The biggest thing, though, is that you can reach out and connect with just the right people. Because if you're working B2B, you don't need a humongous audience. In B2C, you kind of do. It's depending on what your price point is. If you're selling like some kind of trinket that's worth $25 to $75, you need to sell a lot of those. You need to sell a lot of those to be able to make it up. I see Jose's popping in with H2H, or human to human, is a popular distinction when it comes to the B2C, B2B debate. I still find that it's worthwhile designating B2B as different, because my B2C plays are very different from my B2B plays. So both are humans on both sides, but I just find B2B to be different. So I actually do think it's worthwhile designating it as B2B, but you are selling to humans, of course. It's all people. Everything's people.
All people.
Right? Relationships are everything. I find it's easier to build relationships on LinkedIn, because you can reach out, you can connect with the very specific people that you want to get to know. You don't have to try to woo and get retweets on Twitter to get the next 200 followers. You can get 25 just by reaching out to people and having a great DM and a connection request. And if they say yes to your connection request, well, now you're following each other. You can literally go and find a company you'd love to do business with and filter it and find exactly who's posting within that company to start building a relationship with that account. It's hard to do that in B2C, and it's hard to do that on other social networks, but on LinkedIn, that's easy. That's part of the free LinkedIn. You don't even need Sales Navigator to do it.
Right.
You can go and connect with and actually build relationships with the people you'd love to do business with. And it's not like you connect with them and then pitch them. Nobody wants that. But you can go and see what they're posting, add to the conversation, figure out how to add value to them, go and read their profile and find out that, hey, they have kids and they're a marketer, so maybe send them a kid's book, it's like, or find out that they're a big fan of the Patriots and send them a Patriots jersey.
Oh,
now you can do that on Twitter, but I find it's a lot easier to connect with people and do it on LinkedIn.
That's a little bit out of my price range. Jerseys are
it doesn't have to be a jersey, but you could find something. I've had someone send me yerba mate, which is like my favorite tea that I like to drink. And I posted on my profile. Someone noticed it and then sent me mate, which probably costs, I don't know, $7 or something.
Yeah, I noticed that. I love the way that they wrote about the author. Dan Sanchez is the director of audience growth for Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, equipped with his MBA and a career that has crossed design, technology, marketing, and education. Dan is ready to teach others how to grow their business in the digital age. He contributes regularly to the B2B Growth Podcast, LinkedIn, and his own blog, growthguide.com. Dan's also an avid runner, yerba mate drinker, and resides in Minneapolis with his wife, 2 princesses, and a cowboy.
That's right. So you got to add the little fun things in there too. I mean, it's the very professional bio, but the thing that makes it fun is the yerba mate, Minneapolis, 2 princesses, and a cowboy. Those are the things that people remember.
Okay, so tell us what each of those are. So yerba mate.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is.
I don't have my cup right here, but that's too bad.
It's a drink.
Yerba mate is a South American drink that they traditionally drink out of like this hollowed out gourd. And I actually used to drink it from a gourd, which is like a small pumpkin hollowed out and kind of like burned in order to make it sealed. Now I just drink it out of like some kind of metal cup insulated cup like most people drink their coffee. It's loose leaf, so you drink it out of a special metal straw called a bombilla that just has a bunch of holes in the bottom so that you're not drinking the tea up into the straw. It's supposed to be a more healthy version of caffeine, so people call it matine, and I'm like, I think it's just as addictive as caffeine, but I certainly feel a lot better drinking mate every day than coffee.
Okay.
And kind of like my morning wake up routine. So it's like it's my morning dose of caffeine. And I think it's healthier for you. And I certainly feel a lot better drinking it than coffee. But that's my
Okay.
drink. That's what I like. Most people don't know what it is, but the ones who do freaking remember. And they're like, you drink mate. And we give like digital high fives. Bam. Because they're out there, right? James Carbary actually taught me. You could tell from this conversation that James Carbary has taught me a lot. He's like, you have to put the personal things into your bio and into your content. Even you should share a few things that are particular about you. It's almost like Velcro. It gives people more ways to remember you. It gives you more hooks for people to for it to stick to their
Right.
brain. Some of his are like, he hates Pepsi, like vehemently hates Pepsi. And he's a Coke Zero fan, but he hates Pepsi more than he likes Coke, I think. He's even told me, he's like, Dan, if a waitress ever asks me if Pepsi's okay after I ask for a Coke, I say no and I walk out. He hates Pepsi that much. And he says he judges his success by the amount of days he doesn't have to wear shoes. He's a big flip-flop guy. He lives in Florida, and that's just kind of his MO. So if you ever meet James, look at his feet. There's probably not shoes on them.
Right. Oh, I like that. I like that.
So
For
find a few
sure.
personal items and sprinkle it into your LinkedIn. You could put it in your bio, on your about section, even into your byline. I think James does. I don't think I put mine up there.
Yeah,
But those are the little things that
are
people
kind of
remember. It
boring.
humanizes you.
Yeah, yeah. We're super boring. Yeah, no, I need some humanization.
So what are a few things that you're passionate about, maybe even borderline fanatical about, or could be fanatical about, that are little weird things that you love? And maybe even
Yeah,
they're
like
general
golf.
things. I love Disney. And there's probably a lot of people who are like, yeah, Disney, Marvel, all Star Wars, all of it.
Yeah.
Or they could be as niche as yerba mate. What are some of those things for you?
Right. I love that. Yeah, for sure. Like, you've never seen anyone suck so bad at golf, but love it. Like, I don't care if
That
I
should be the
just want to
thing.
go out.
Aspiring golfer or lover of golf, or I don't know, like there's probably a way to wordsmith that to make it really fun. The pro mulligan.
Okay. Well, we should wrap up. It's 2:44. I thank you, Dan, so much. So if you guys, yeah, Dan knows his stuff. Great guest. Yeah, you're only my second guest, Dan.
Woo!
My first guest was
many great guests are to come.
Yeah, exactly. On many topics. Because I mean, my thing has been with my career is that, all of us live inside our silos and our echo chambers. And the reason why maybe we don't really come up with innovative ideas or, creative ideas is because we only talk amongst ourselves and not with the outside world. But I find that my most inspiring, the moments that I'm most inspired by and the times where I've solved the best problems with like creative solutions is when I'm talking to people outside of my own particular field and learning. So, and wow, we've done that with you today. I'm going to replay this and think to myself, oh, wow, did we ever get a lot out of this episode? Thank you so much, Dan.
That was a lot of fun. We covered a lot of different topics.
We did.
So good.
All right. Have fun today. Merry Christmas to you. If you guys want to pick up the book, just go over to Dan Sanchez's profile, click on the featured section. You'll find the book there, or you can buy it on Amazon. What I think I might do is buy the book, ask Dan for his address, send the book to him, have him autograph it, and send it back to me.
No. Just give me your address and I'll send you a signed copy.
Oh my goodness.
I have a whole stack over here.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to do that. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thanks for having me on.